Hi everyone. All right, it's such a pity that I cannot be there in person. So you know I've moved to Singapore and so just settled down here with two kids. So it's a little bit tough to do international travel for the time being. So I'll have to do this remotely, but hopefully everyone will be enjoying this conference. I'm really happy this is happening again because. And for the past 2 years, it's just been tough. To be honest, I'm getting a little bit tired of remote conferences. I want to do it in person too. So I really envy you guys there. Okay, so let's get into the talk. State of the Union. There is so this talk originally was like 30 to 40 minutes, but there's a lot of information. So I'll try to go fast here. So I'll skim over some of the details. So we'll share the slides afterwards, of course. So don't worry if you don't catch some of the more finer details, but it's just a quick overview of what's been going on and what's going to happen next in the Vue ecosystem. All right, so let's go. So the first thing to mention, obviously, is that Vue 3 became the new default version on February 7th, 2022. That took us quite a bit of time. We wrote a blog post about the whole process and what went into it and what we achieved in the process. So if you are starting a new project now, obviously, you should go Vue 3. And we also launched the brand new Vue.js.org. We completely reworked the documentation, everything. Every chapter has been went through and updated to reflect the latest best practices, the latest tool chain, the latest APIs, and everything that's up to date with the latest version of Vue 3. We also added quite a bit of new content. So if you still haven't gone through the new docs, I highly recommend you to do so. Even if you are familiar with a lot of the existing chapters, reread them. You may find a lot of the new stuff that's added into the existing chapters. I would also highly recommend rereading the whole thing by toggling between the composition API and options API. There is a global toggle that allows you to see the same chapter with different API styles. You can see the connection between the two API styles. You can also better understand the how more similar they are at the higher level. So there's more details in my February talk about some of the content and the technical details of the new docs. The technical aspect of it is also quite interesting. The new documentation is built on VitePress, which is a Vue 3 and Vite-powered static site generator. It's the successor to VuePress. So if you're building new documentation, definitely look forward to it. So now let's talk about Vue 3 adoption. Since the launch, so I'm using the npm download stats of @vue/runtime core as a proxy statistics for Vue 3 because this package will only be downloaded if you're using Vue 3. So currently it's at a bit over 800,000 weekly npm downloads. That is plus 70% since the default version switch since February. So that's like 4 months, right? We're seeing plus 70% in 4 months. And if we expand to 1 year, that's 4x in the past year. And now it accounts for more than 25% of all Vue downloads. So we're seeing this picking up really rapidly. So I'm pretty sure we're going to see a much higher number by the end of the year. So going into ecosystem, Nuxt 3, so it entered RC stage in April. It's currently at RC3. And we should not very far away from a stable release. Vuetify 3 also entered beta May 19th. Again, two of the probably the most important pieces in the ecosystem. Many Vue 2 users, we've heard many Vue 2 users say, okay, they're staying on Vue 2 mostly because they're waiting on Nuxt and Vuetify, and it's really getting exciting that both of these are entering closer and closer to stable launch. VitePress, the static site generator I mentioned earlier, is currently in 1.0 alpha. Kia just launched the new 1.0 alpha with a brand new design default theme. So as you can see, it has dark mode. It looks very, very well designed, and it has the same design language as the official Vue docs, but it's also distinct enough that you can tell, okay, this is a VPress site. If you're starting a new Vue library, a new open source project, definitely I think this is currently the best option for writing documentation sites right now. Also, we've been sponsoring Johnson Chu, who is the author of Volar, our new recommended VS Code extension. He's been working on it full time since March, thanks to the sponsorship from our Open Collective, and he's been doing a lot of great work, a lot of improvements going into Volar, improving the IDE experiment. So just want to give a shout out to him. Now let's talk a little bit about Vite. Vite technically isn't part of Vue anymore. It's now cross-framework, but it's still going to be an important cornerstone for the continued evolution of the Vue ecosystem, because all our future tooling, including Nuxt, is based on Vite. So it's great to know what's going to happen in V3 next. So we're planning for a new major version of Vite, which is 3.0. It's a major version, but it's not there are not a lot of huge breaking changes at the user level. So internally, we're moving its source code entirely to full ESM. The SSR build also defaults to ESM output. These will probably affect authors of higher level frameworks that's built on top of Vite, for example, Nuxt or other SSR frameworks that's built on top of Vite a bit more. But as the end user, these meta frameworks will probably absorb the complexity for you. So there's not much for you to worry about. And if you're using Vite just for pure client projects, and then it's probably not going to affect you at all. Then there's other internal improvements like non-blocking dependency discovery and optimization. So I won't go into too much details here, but the idea is, yes, there are possibilities for Vue to get even faster. Also without the annoying thing, which it discovers a dependency late and then reload the whole page. We're also improving the consistency between development and production so that both the builds will handle common JS dependencies exactly the same way. So there will be fewer cases of building for production, then realize something breaks. So currently V3 is in alpha stage. So I encourage you to try opt into the alpha and test it out if you have existing projects, and give us feedback. Okay, now let's get into Vue core updates. So in April and May, we did a big bug squash for V3 core. We released quite a few patches. The latest one is actually 3.2.27 or 37. we have so many patches. There are over 70 pull requests merged, 140 issues closed. So a lot of long-standing SSR bugs also got eliminated. Also brought some important improvements to the single-file component Playground. If you've tried the Playground, you'll notice that it now has 2 additional buttons. One allows you to toggle between production mode and development mode. This allows you to reproduce some of the bugs that only appear in one of those modes. Then we also have an SSR button that allows you to reproduce SSR hydration bugs, which has been really hard to reproduce for a lot of users. So really, this is also helping us ourselves because we want to make it easier for people to send in reproductions, which makes it easier for us to fix those bugs. All right, so now let's talk about Vue 2.7. So we've mentioned this for a very long time, and the good news is we've finally started working on it. And we've already done a lot of work on it. So the scope of 2.7 is going to be backporting Composition API. So Composition API will become directly part of Vue 2 in 2.7. So you can do the same import ref or import reactive from Vue when you upgrade to 2.7. It is going to be limited to the same reactivity caveats that Vue 2 has, but we backported most of the test cases as well, and the majority of them are passing. So it's looking very promising. If you're already using Composition API in Vue 2 via the @Vue/Composition API plugin, it's going to be a quite smooth transition because we try to make everything behave the same way with the plugin. And then we are also backporting script setup so that you can use that use composition API and script setup, similar to how you would do it in the latest Vue 3. And then there will be improved TypeScript support. So currently with Alpha, okay, before we get into the current state, a little bit of preparation work that went in 2.7, we moved the whole code base, the Vue 2 code base, to TypeScript. That was a lot of work, but it's working out really nicely. It's also now using PNPM. We also replaced the old test runner with VTest, which is the latest Vite-based test runner. So the test runs blazing fast now. All of this just modernizing the code base, making it easier for us to maintain it for the long run. The current state is that the composition API has already been fully ported. So if you try install Vue at V2 Alpha right now, you'll be able to use composition API directly with full type support. They are exposed as named exports, and if you're interested, there's a link that goes into some of the details on the behavior difference between this and Vue 3. It's currently in alpha. The latest is already alpha 6, I believe. It's released under the v2-alpha distribution tag. So you can do npm install Vue at v2-alpha. And we're currently focused on compatibility stability testing. We already ran this with some of the big projects with the big end-to-end test suites, and they are so we fixed a few issues and now they're fully passing. So we believe this is going to be a very safe update. Essentially just upgrade and opt into the new APIs. So the next step is going to be porting script setup. We are going to doing some behind the scenes simplification, moving some of the separate packages, bringing it into the Vue 2 repo, similar to how we do it with Vue 3. So that the versions are always synced when we do new releases. With 2.7, we will also give Vue Loader 15 and Vite plugin Vue 2 respective updates to take advantage of this, so that you will no longer need to install Vue template compiler separately as a peer dependency. All right, so we'll enter beta after script setup is ported, and the estimated release date for 2.7 is around end of June. We'll see how the beta goes. If the beta shows really stable progress, we'll probably just go stable really soon. But if the beta takes longer, then we'll make sure it's stable, because we want to make sure 2.7 is a very, very safe update for existing Vue 2 apps. All right, so the implications of 2.7. So once it's out, Vue 2.7 will be the final minor release of Vue 2. Starting from the release date of 2.7, there will be 18 months of LTS, starting from the release date. So assuming the release date of end of June, that means the end of life for Vue 2 as a whole will be end of year 2023. So if you have big projects that you expect to be running on Vue 2 beyond that date, you will probably need to consider extended support licensing or migrating before that date, migrating to Vue 3 before that date. So we are considering partnering with some service providers to provide additional extended support if you intend to use Vue 2 beyond that date. So there's a link here. If your company have that concerns in that regard, you can register interest in that, so we can see what we can do if that happens. Okay, so that's it for Vue 2. Now let's get into Vue 3. So we've been on 3.2 for quite a time, but 3.3 has been planned. There are many things in the pipeline. So the major plan features is, first, we want to stabilize suspense, which is going to be important for meta frameworks like Nuxt. So we'll be working with Nuxt team to stabilize this. We want to stabilize reactivity transform. So this is a syntax trigger that allows you to make script setup even easier to use. There are a lot of SSR-focused improvements, like lazy and conditional hydration, improved SSR mismatch warnings, improved HTML output size. Also, we also want to support imported types in script setup. Currently, when you use define props or with a type-based declaration, you cannot use imported types. So that limitation has been quite annoying, and we want to address that in 3.3 as well. So these are only the major ones. There are a lot of other things that's planned. So there will be more details when we get closer to starting working on 3.3. Obviously, the work will have to start after 2.7. So the estimation is going to be in Q3 this year. Okay, so finally, some future explorations. There is a experimental new compilation strategy that we've been exploring. So note this is very, very early stage. It's very experimental. But the high level idea is that Vue has been transitioning more and more towards a compiler heavy framework. In the beginning, we are very runtime heavy, but as we introduce single file components, we notice that we are having more and more opportunities for a compile time, either syntax sugar or performance optimizations, right? So script setup is a great example. It's a very, very compiler heavy syntax trigger that allows you to just write less code. So we want to extend this to templates and compiler analyzing the template, trying to produce more efficient code so that the virtual DOM runtime can do less work, right? So this is essentially pushing it to a step further so that we take the template and produce something that's not virtual DOM at all. We directly produce code that's imperative. We directly create a piece of HTML DOM, and then we directly bind we generate the code that binds individual nodes to reactive expressions. So the compilation strategy is inspired by Solid.js, and it also ties a bit back to how Vue 1 worked, except now we do most of the work at compile time instead of walking the whole DOM to figure out what node we should bind to. Right. So to give you a quick idea, so this is a typical script setup based Vue 3 component. So we have a single ref here. And in the template, it's just a bunch of bindings using the same variable. We have ID, class, click event listener, and a text binding. So this is what it will look like when you compile it using the new strategy. No, this is not the code you will write, right? The template, this is the code you will write. It's exactly the same as the code you would write today, except it's compiled into something different, which is lighter and more efficient than the virtual DOM equivalent. So the benefit for this is the performance is extremely competitive. It has better performance than the current virtual DOM runtime, even without manual optimizations. So it performs better than the current virtual DOM plus manual optimizations. It also has significantly lower memory usage, which has been a major downside of virtual DOM runtime. Has a significantly lighter base runtime size. So currently in the prototype, we only need around 3.5 kilobytes of code on top of the reactivity engine. So that is around already 10 to 12 kbs lighter than what we currently have in the virtual DOM version, right? There's also a potentially lighter component abstraction cost. So we can when we compile a component, we can compile into something simpler than what we do currently in the virtual DOM implementation. Again, this is experimental, right? Because the biggest challenge for this is, in fact, the adoption strategy, because we don't want to introduce something that would require you to, say, rewrite your app. So the importance of this is you want to introduce in a way that is completely opt-in, and it should work in any existing Vue 3 app. So it will not affect the way you write your code right now. You can opt in at the component level so that a single component will be compiled using the new strategy, and it will just work seamlessly in your existing normal virtual DOM based app. That's one option. The other one is you can opt in at the app level. So you essentially say, I'm not going to use virtual DOM at all in my entire app, and it's all going to be using this compilation strategy. So this will allow you to drop the virtual DOM runtime entirely and produce a lighter app. So this is suitable for extremely perf-sensitive use cases. But even with strategy 1, opt in at the component level, you can use this to fine tweak some of the more performance critical regions in your app. Right. So this is the hope. Again, this is really early. We're still exploring it, but I think this is a promising direction that we should explore earlier. So this new runtime will also have opportunities for us to play with even more efficient hydration strategies that some of the newer frameworks have been experimenting with. So I think this is going to be an exciting thing to look for in maybe Q4 and early next year. All right, so that's it. Thank you very much. And I don't know if we have time for questions, but thank you.
I'm going to jump down here so Evan can see me. Woohoo! Amazing stuff, Evan. Do we have time for questions? We'll take a few. Does anyone have any questions? Put your hand up now or never. Yeah, one down the back. Okay, microphone is coming to you.
Hi, Evan. Thanks for all your hard work. We really love you and appreciate you. I was wondering, are you in any communication with Ryan Carniato, who wrote Solid, and do you guys have some sort of line of communication open?
I need someone to relay the question to me because I can't really hear. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So the question was, are you in communication with Ryan?
Ryan,
From
the
Solid.
author of Solid.js?
Yes.
That's right.
So we haven't really been directly discussing this, but I've been following Ryan's articles and I've been looking at Solid.js. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on, but no, there is no direct collaboration on this.
Cool. Annie, one more question. Who's it going to be? I mean, Evan just said everything so well, you don't have any doubts, right? Just move to view 3, end of story, right? Oh, we have one here, okay. You go that way, I'll go this way, and then he can hear me on my mic and that mic. Ooh. Here we go. Talking to this mic, and I'm close by.
I was curious, at the last Vue conference I attended, you spent some time comparing usage of Vue versus other frameworks like Angular, in the growth rate year over year. Could you speak to that, for how the growth of Vue is comparing to other frameworks?
I actually haven't looked at the absolute numbers, but if you look at the overall growth, I think I did that a few months ago. I think if you look at the percentage growth, we're a bit higher than React in the past year, in fact. I think Angular has been somewhat flatter compared to React and Vue. And obviously, Svelte is growing really fast, but the absolute volume of Svelte is still relatively small. It's less than 10% of Vue or React or other frameworks. So I would say among the top 3, Vue seems still to be the fastest growing, I think. I need to look at the data again to make sure, but based on a rough study that I did a few months ago, I think in the past year, Vue has been the one with the highest growth.